Hey there! Welcome to another video in my series Boy Scout Knives of the Greatest Generation. That is, official Boy Scout knives issued before and at the beginning of World War II. I was able to pick up another PAL branded knife recently. I already had one and have done a video on it, but I got such a compelling deal on this one I really couldn't pass it up. And I'm glad I got it, because when I got it I could see some pretty important differences between the two knives, and I wanted to share that with you. So the first one I got, if you remember, is was stamped PAL Blade Company. And my reference book gives a date on this, circa 1941 to 1947 question mark. But this is the tang stamp that PAL used when they first took over production from Remington. Remington stopped making their own knives in 1940, and PAL bought their factory and equipment and started production and carried on making Boy Scout knives. So the first PAL Blade Company Boy Scout knives look an awful lot like the old Remington knives. Same round shield, 3 3/4 inches, same tool set, including, you know, this two-piece can opener, this really long reach screwdriver cap lifter. The only difference really is that, you know, Remington used bone handles, PAL uses plastic handles. I think PAL was the first company to use plastic handles on Boy Scout knives. This knife too, curiously, does not have brass liners, and it has steel liners and a spacer here. One of my viewers left a comment and suggested that that might have been because brass was being conserved and used for ammunition casing during World War II. I'm not sure of that, but it's a great theory, and it makes as much sense as anything else. You know, you also had steel pennies back then for a few years while they used the copper for bullets and things, so that makes some sense. But the one I picked up has a blade stamp PAL Cutlery Company. And so by the time PAL started using PAL Cutlery Company instead of PAL Blade Company, these knives started to take on a little of their own character. And so, you know, obviously the tang stamp is different. The knife is, you know, same black plastic handles, 3 3/4 inches. But in addition to the tang stamp being different, we now have the shorter, stubbier screwdriver cap lifter. We now have, a one-piece can opener. So this was a major change. And another thing I want to point out, it's a little more subtle, but the difference between this knife and this knife, every single tool on this knife has a half stop. Even things like the can opener. So there's your can opener half stop. Here's the screwdriver. Saw the blade. And even the awl. The awl has a half stop. So that's really cool, I think. And then another difference that's pretty obvious is this knife has brass liners and a spacer. And because of that, it's lighter. I haven't weighed them, but it is lighter in the hand, and it's also thinner. So just some differences. In a lesser known early Scout knife, the PAL Blade Company and PAL Cutlery Company knives. And with this review, I think I'm finished for a while with my series Boy Scout Knives of the Greatest Generation, unless I find something really rare that I can afford. Because what I've done is I've managed to get one example from every early maker, with the exception of New York Knife hammer brands. This is a Schrade reproduction of Boy Scout knife number 1, so it represents the New York Knife Company hammer brand. This is a very early Remington with the cutout shield from 1927. This is a Universal Landers, Frary and Clark. This is another Remington that's very similar to the PAL Blade Company knives. Here's an Ulster from the Dwight Devine period. We'll tell you what, just for fun, let's put that new PAL Cutlery Company knife in there because it's a lot different than the Remington. I think it adds a little diversity to the collection. And then finally the Cattaraugus Whittlecraft. So I've done a video on each of these. They're all in a playlist called Boy Scout Knives of the Greatest Generation. If you missed any of those or care to watch them or are trying to learn a little bit more about these early Boy Scout knives, please go there and take a look. All right. Thanks for watching, and have fun collecting.